Is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. So, if at this time you have no immigration status, you overstayed or entered the country illegally, I have a good topic for you today. I'm going to be talking about some of the options that you may be able to pursue to fix that situation. And so, what you need to do though is after listening to this live, head on over to the link in the description of this video or to the link in this profile, schedule your appointment to talk about the options that fit your needs. But today I'm going to just address immigration relief that can help you to fix a situation where you're here, you're in a gray zone where you don't have permanent immigration status, or you don't have an official immigration status, you overstayed or entered illegally. There are options available. And so let's jump straight into those options. So now, usually when you have entered the country illegally, that means you've entered without inspection. This is different from overstaying a visa, because when you overstay a visa, you entered legally, but then you overstayed that time, that authorized time that you were given. But when it comes on to entering the country illegally, it means that you entered without inspection. You either snuck across the border, and so an officer never inspected you and admitted you into the country. Usually, in situations like this, generally you will not qualify for adjustment of status only under certain circumstances. And I'm going to talk about circumstances where you can qualify for adjustment of status even if you enter the country illegally. So the first is VAWA. You will hear me talking about this time and time again, and that's because people are in this country that definitely qualifies for it, but you don't know you qualify for it. VAWA is the formal name is Violence Against Women's Act, but it is, even though it does have the woman in the name of it, it's for everyone. It's for men, it's for women, it's for children. It's not assigned to a particular gender. If you qualify, if you meet the eligibility criteria, you can go for this even if you enter the country without permission. So VAWA is one of those that the exceptions to the general rule that they will not allow you to stay and apply for a green card. This process allows you to stay and apply for the green card, right? And how do you know you qualify? That's where you need to make sure you schedule the consultation, because it really is very fact specific. But I'm going to tell you the basic information that you need to know so you know whether you should really pursue this option. And it's, do you have a US citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, a parent, as if you're under 25, or a US citizen son or daughter who's age 21 and up, or they're about to turn 21 and up. If you do have such a relationship, then you could qualify for this. So that's the first one, is definitely it is there for you, right? There's nothing wrong with pursuing an option that you qualify for. As a matter of fact, it makes it safer for you in that you are able to get the protections you need from someone who's mistreating you and also from possible deportation. So go ahead and contact us so we can evaluate your options and get started. Now, there's another provision called Section 245I. If you do qualify for permanent residence, you can qualify through an employer, you can qualify through family, you can qualify through, as long as you qualify through some means, then, and the Section 245I of the INA, that's the immigration statute, if it does apply to you, you can stay here and apply for adjustment of status. Stay here and get the green card, even if you entered the country illegally. Now, with the Section 245I, how do you know you qualify? Well, did you have a relative or an employer, or did you submit a labor certification on or before April 30th, 2001? If you did, then it means that you have a shot at qualifying for this. Even if you enter the country without permission, and what they do is that you go through the regular adjustment of status process, and when they do find that it does apply because of the illegal entry, then you pay a fine, and that's it. You're not facing very severe immigration consequences or being deported or kicked out of the country. This is the amnesty law that came out back then, and it's still effective. Now, how many people have been filed for back in 2001? It's dwindling now, the amount of people that can qualify for Section 245I. However, and so, another part of immigration reform is pushing this to be this to be extended to a more recent timeline so more people can get this amnesty. However, they are right now, it's anybody who has filed an immigration app, you've had a petition filed on your behalf or a labor certification in order to be sponsored by an employer on or before April 30th, 2001. There are other requirements, of course, but that's going to be the main one here. If you entered illegally, then this could be your path to still gain permanent residence in the United States despite your past. Also, keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to gain the protection of the Section 245I. Another is if you say you were here, you overstayed, but you did not have an immigrant visa immediately available to you, but now you do. Then the Section 245I could apply to you to be able to help you to stay here and get your green card. So just remember these facts. Did you come or overstay your visa back in, on or before April 30th, 2001? Are you physically here in the United States? Or did you enter the country illegally? And did you back before April 30th, 2001? Did you have anything filed, any immigration documents filed on or before that date? And if so, then Section 245 could apply to you. Now, um, we're moving on from Section 245. I'm going to talk about other types of relief. So there's asylum. Now, asylum, you have to apply within 1 year of entry. So if you're here now, you're here on your visa, you could apply for asylum. And I would definitely be able to assist you no matter where you are in the United States. But keep in mind that there is a tight deadline. Otherwise, your case gets a lot more complicated. And we want you to start out as simple as possible. And so if now here's where you can qualify for asylum. If you're afraid, if you're here now, you are afraid to return to your country because of you will be targeted, you will be threatened, you will be persecuted based on an identity that falls into very specific categories. And I don't know if it's very specific, but I'm going to list some of those out for you. And if you're being targeted because of your political affiliation, your political opinion, your political party, your political activity, and political activity could be, for example, are you trying to advocate for a certain position in your country, not necessarily be a part of a political party, but are you trying to advocate for a certain position in your country and are you being targeted for that? That could be based on political opinion. And so you could receive asylum if you're being threatened, if you're being harmed, if you're being targeted, if you're being locked up, even if you're being economically deprived and oppressed in your country. And when I say economically oppressed, I mean specifically, you specifically. They're blacklisting you. They're making sure you don't have any access to money to be able to help yourself and your family to the point where it is harming you. Then this could be for you. The other is religion. Are you being targeted because of your religion? Sometimes this happens where you belong to a minority religion in the country, and so that you become a target. But it's going to the facts are going to differ based on the country, based on what's going on. Then there's going to be your ethnicity and your race. If you are being targeted because of the ethnic group that you belong to or your race, then this could be for you. And then there's a catch-all group here. Are you the member of a particular social group? Being the member of a particular social group can differ based on your facts, but usually there are there's a lot of case law out there explaining exactly what a particular social group should be. And usually, a particular social group is something that you cannot change. You identify with that group. You cannot change your identity. You cannot change the characteristics of that group. And because of the characteristics, you're being targeted in your country. And targeted means you're being threatened, you're harmed. This is why you fear persecution in your country. And so it now keep in mind that being the member of a particular group, that's where you see, if you're being targeted based on your gender, but it comes down to maybe a specific aspect of your gender. If you're being targeted based on being the victim of domestic violence, or based on your sexual orientation, or based on your family and your affiliation with your family, these can be considered a particular social group. So asylum is one of them. And then we also have the T visa. So if you know, I say victim of trafficking, but immediately as I'm pretty sure as I'm saying victim of trafficking, you're zoning out because you think, hell no, I have not been the victim of trafficking. However, keep in mind that there is a narrative in the media that's very different from the description and the definition of trafficking under the law. Trafficking comes in many different forms, and I in my practice have been I've become educated about the extent of trafficking. Trafficking is not necessarily being physically restrained somewhere and being forced to work or being forced to do sex acts, not physically. But if you've been forced into a situation where you're working, where you didn't want to work, or you thought you'd be doing something else, and you have to unwillingly start to work for this person, or continue to work for this person because they're threatening you. They're telling you that they're going to report you to ICE. They're going to, if they're going to harm your family, they're going to, do bad things to you. There are going to be bad consequences if you don't continue to work for them. Then this is also a form of trafficking through coercion. If you have been lured into a situation where they're telling you that they're going to do all these great things for you if you come and work for them. They make everything look so great in the job, and then it turns out that you find out that was a lie, right? It's trafficking through fraud. So, trafficking under immigration law means not only physical force to force you to do things, but also through abuse. If they're in the practice of abusing you, the employer, or even a relative, it could be an acquaintance, not necessarily just an employer, but even an intimate partner. If they are in the practice of using abusive tactics, coercion, threats, failure to pay you, we call that wage theft. They're paying you very, very, very low, and then forcing you to maybe live with them, or forcing you to continue to work for them. Then that is also a form of trafficking. If they're using fraud, coercion, which coercion would be those tactics that I just talked to you about, telling you they're going to call ICE, or that you'll never find another job anywhere else because you're undocumented, using these things against you. That is fraud. And then there's also physical force as well, which it does happen Um, However, I want you to know that it goes beyond just physical force. Trafficking is not just about being kidnapped and then forced into a situation, but you could be lured into that situation. I'll give you examples where we have succeeded in getting approvals for our clients. And one is where you are promised a work permit. And then you get into the situation and they continue to say, oh, well, if you leave, if when you threaten to leave, they say, if you leave, you're not going to get that work permit, and then they start to do other things. They start to use other tactics like make you pay for things. You have to end up owing the employer, you owe them a debt, or they stop paying you, or they make you work 24/7. That is very common, especially in care facilities, adult care facilities, or facilities, group homes, and those types, or assisted living facilities, where they take you on as a caretaker. Usually when they're recruiting you, they're telling you that it's gonna be a breeze, you're gonna have one or two. You oh ex- okay, just let me know if you can hear me. You're gonna have one or two clients who are going to who you have to care for, but then you go in there and you are overwhelmed with the number of patients that you have. You instead of one patient, you maybe have five, and then you're living in the facility, and so now you're sleep deprived because they have you on duty 24/7. They have maybe someone overlooking you, making sure that you're doing everything they're telling you to do. It's very common in that setting for it to turn into a trafficking situation. And then what they do is they pay you very little, or they stop paying you on time. And sometimes they do this to keep you going, right? Because you keep working because you don't want to leave. Now you put so much work in, you don't want to leave until you get paid. And so they keep dragging this along until either you give up, because you don't necessarily still have to be in this situation. This could have been years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But this continues until my client can't manage anymore and they leave. So it doesn't have to be a dramatic situation where police rescue them, or it could be where they just say, after the abusive tactics of the employer or the intimate partner or the acquaintance, they just say, I'm done, and they walk away from the trafficking. Or they could be fired too, because maybe you're not cooperating with what the employer or your intimate partner wants you to do, and so they terminate the relationship there as well. So it doesn't even have to be a situation where you ended the relationship, right? So if you what I want you to get out of this is that there are options that you have no idea about, and I'm telling you these options right now. And this is based on trafficking. My rule of thumb here is, if you have been abused here in the United States, you're undocumented, you need relief, even if you cross the border without permission, if you were pushed into a situation like this, an abusive situation where you felt stuck, you felt afraid to leave, maybe because of the abuse, maybe because of the threats from the employer or your intimate partner, then you could qualify for this. And it does cover intimate partners, relatives, acquaintances. So, for example, if you were brought here by a relative and then the relative promised you all these great things, they're going to bring you here to give you your papers, they're going to put you in school, they're going to pay for your school, and then you get here and they just put you straight to work in the house like Cinderella. Guess what? That can get you a trafficking visa, right? It can get you a T visa. What do you get with this? You get 4 years of a work permit. And I just touched base with my client, my dear client, who was trafficked in a similar situation. And she had just got her T visa, she now has access to medical care. She has access to public assistance, like cash assistance and food stamps to help her. She has access to housing now. Her whole life has changed because of this one document that when she called me, she did not know that she qualified for it. But when I spoke with her in detail, I got her facts. I found out she qualified. She had faith in me and we got it for her. And it just made my whole year to hear that everything that she needed, uh, it came through because she was facing a lot of medical hardship. She was facing, her life was on the line. And the T visa also allows you and your family to access this essential care. Because usually, when you're in a situation like this where you're lured to be here by an employer, by an intimate partner who abused you, by a relative, even by a stranger. When you're usually here and you're facing this situation, you are in a position where you're vulnerable. You may have medical needs that you can't address because of your undocumented status. And the T visa does approach all of that. Once you're approved, you do get a certification letter and a case manager that helps you to navigate medical care and any assistance that you need and that you qualify for. So the T visa is life changing. It offers many benefits and it offers a path to permanent residence. So after we get the approval for the T, we start to work to get the permanent residence for our clients. So it is a direct path to permanent residence. And then now, why it's essential for me to talk about it here is because it allows you to get these benefits even if you came into the country illegally. There are ways to ask for forgiveness, and even in some cases with past immigration violations like misrepresentation, fraud, illegal entry, and some criminal issues as well. So it offers a broad range of relief for individuals. Unfortunately, it is something that attorneys. It's not a usual practice for attorneys to screen for this, and I do that. I make sure when I am talking to my clients, I evaluate every single option that's on the table for them. So, and then there's a you. If you've been the victim of a crime, a qualifying crime, stalking, domestic violence, you could qualify for this as well. Now, it's similar to the T. You need a certification, which we work on to get certification from law enforcement. So, if you fall under any of these categories, if you can relate, or even if you have an inkling that you may qualify for this, it is worth it to pursue this option. Go ahead, go to the link in the profile, go to the link in the description of the video on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Go to the link in the profile on Instagram to be able to get the link, schedule your own appointment, or call the office directly. When you call the office, you will be able to speak to a scheduling coordinator who will be more than happy to assist you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take questions. I got really fired up there about the options that are available to you. So I'm excited to speak with you. Should you want to get started right away, that's what we do here. We get started right away. And it's not only me, but I have an entire team that's behind you. I am going to feature one of our staff members that's very special to us. Our staff works even with outside. Okay, volume is gone. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to come out. Let me know. All right. Okay, so I'm having technical difficulties here, so I'm gonna go out and come back in. All right, so I'm having technical difficulties, but while individuals come back in on Instagram, I'm going to go ahead and take questions here on YouTube. So go ahead, put your questions in, and while I wait for the questions to come back in on Instagram. Thanks so much for joining me on Instagram. Put those questions in the comments again. I apologize. Go ahead, put those questions in the comments, and then I will answer. All right, so hi there. I apply my VAWA case November, ending I got receipt number on February 1st. I'm C1D visa, came to US 2019 when I got fingerprints. How long total process takes? So now there is authority that does say that coming in on a C1D, which is usually a crewman's visa, usually adjustment of status is not available under VAWA. There is some authority that does say that you could qualify for it. You could be looking at 2.5 years for this process. But what I would say is make sure that you are represented because your process can get a little complex just based on the issues that you just mentioned, especially regarding that C1D visa. You want to make sure that you're approaching your process, your process carefully, and that you fully understand the implications of that coming in on that visa. I mailed my VAW application on February 22nd. How long will it take me to get receipt notice? So I'm seeing it could range, I'm seeing about a month to 8 weeks to get those. I have VAWA. How long should I receive the receipt notice? So the receipt notice should come anywhere 4 to 6 weeks. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and answer questions here on Instagram. Go ahead, drop your questions. If you had a question before, drop your question so I can answer it. Do you have to be a citizen to file for someone? No, permanent residents do qualify to apply for their spouses, their children who are under 21. So they do qualify to sponsor those relatives. Hi there. How long is the process for citizenship paperwork to finish? So I'm seeing anywhere from 2 to 6 months for citizenship. I overstayed for 7 months on my B1, B2 visa. Would I have to wait for exactly 3 years to apply again? So if you overstayed and then you left the country, now even unfortunately, whenever you have a violation like this, even though you become barred for 3 years and you can apply for the visa after that, but keep in mind that once this is on your record, they're very unforgiving with this, and you're gonna really have to come good with the evidence to show why you should still get the privilege of getting the visa again. Only long after a child received how long after a child received a green card can they file for their parent? So green card holders can't file for their parent. Only U.S. citizens can file, and U.S. citizens who are age 21 or older. Uh, I'm here from December. Can I apply for asylum? Yes. Now, can you apply for asylum? I don't know what your individual qualifications are. I think I've seen you mention this before. Go ahead, give us a call. We can get started. You are within a time period now where you can apply for asylum if you qualify, but we need to determine whether you qualify and get started right away. So right now it's just a matter of getting started and figuring out, confirming you qualify. Can my child apply for the green card? She's on DACA and co-owner of a restaurant. So when it comes down to DACA recipients, there may be ways to obtain permanent residence through an employer, through a spouse, and even possibly through their own ownership of a business or their own achievements. It does get complex though, based on, for example, when it comes on to being the owner of a restaurant or being, say, an entrepreneur. You're applying for permanent residence based on your entrepreneurship. you have to also look at the nature of your entry into the country, and whether you can fix that situation, right? The unlawful presence that has accrued, because all of that then turns to whether adjustment of status is going to apply or consular processing, whether they qualify to apply for an I-601A waiver to get forgiveness for any unlawful presence that has accrued. So when it comes to this, and consultation is going to be best here, because there are multiple ways to approach a situation like this. It just depends, though, on so many different facts. If you're not a citizen and you file for someone, how long does the process take? So if you're a permanent resident, you file for an individual that qualifies to be filed for. It's going to depend, right? So if you're a permanent resident, you apply for your son or daughter who's under 21. I'm seeing 18 to 24 months. If the child is, and the child has to be unmarried. If they're 21 and over, and unmarried, then it's taking 5 to 7 years. And green card holders can't sponsor married children. If they are sponsoring their spouse, 18 to 24 months. Hi there, Caroline. Nice to see you. Can someone file for asylum after staying in the US for over 2 years? Now, it may be possible, right? But after your entry, you really are supposed to apply within 1 year of entry. Otherwise, to still qualify for asylum, you have to show that there were exceptional circumstances that led to the delay, right? Or you have to show that there were changes in circumstances in the country that now qualify you for asylum. So, for example, say you are a Ukrainian citizen here in the United States, and say you ended up overstaying your time, and say that happened back in 2020, and then fast forward to now, we have the war that's ongoing in Ukraine. Now that there's a changed circumstance, it brings up a renewed need to apply for asylum for some individuals, right? So some individuals can now qualify, and of course there are other protections. There's special parole in place right now for Ukrainians. But if, for example, they can now apply for asylum because of the conflict in the country and the invasion into the country, that was not there before, and now it's there. Then in that case, you could go ahead and apply for asylum, but you still would want to make sure you do that within a reasonable time, because if you wait too long after the changed circumstances or the exceptional circumstances, they can turn around and say you did not apply within a reasonable time. I was told from December 12th, 2022 that I would get an embassy date. I am yet to receive that. Can you say if it should take that long? Yes, it's backed up right now. Now, if you have already filed your VAWA, make sure you speak with your attorney about the timelines that you should be expecting. Usually for my clients, when I'm applying on behalf of my clients, I'm seeing work permits coming and travel documents coming 6 to 12 months. But make sure you speak to your attorney, because they know your case best. A child who is filed for, how long can they apply for citizenship? It depends. If they got it through a parent, of course, there's questions about whether they've already derived citizenship. But if they got it through a parent, then a parent and they didn't derive citizenship right away, then 5 years to get that. To get that. No, I just don't know how the child got it. If the child got it through marriage to a US citizen, then, and the child, of course, has to be, I'm assuming child could be an adult, then it could be, 3 years if they're married to a citizen and stay married to the citizen. What are the realistic chances of a Nigerian being granted a visit visa? It's hard to say because it's really dependent on how they evaluate your application. So you have to, the U.S. overall, they're very picky about giving the visa, the visitor's visa. And what they really want to see is that you're in a stable situation in Nigeria. You have long-standing commitments in Nigeria. You have property in Nigeria. Maybe you have a business. You have long-standing employment that enable you to qualify for the visitor's visa, because they want to make sure that when they give you the visa that you're not going to end up overstaying in the United States. So I have 10-year bar, and my baby. What I should do now? Give us a call. We'll talk about your 10-year bar. There are waivers, ways to get forgiveness, but I need to understand what your goals are. You have a 10-year bar. Is it that you would like a temporary waiver, or is it that you now want to apply for permanent residence? So the type of waiver is going to depend on what happened, and what are your ties to the U.S., what are your relationships in the U.S. to be able to get the forgiveness. Do you know the name of the app that you can download to follow on a case at USCIS? So if you go to USCIS, they do have the app to download there. You can definitely just search it on that website. Um, all right. Any more questions? Put those questions in now. Otherwise, I'm going to see you on Monday. And hopefully, you can get on my schedule next week so we can talk about your particular situation and then get started right away. So, if my VAWA was submitted and all documents except my I-130 was sent back because it was obsolete, does the wait time start over for me, advance parole, or my EAD? This was sent back 5 months after submission. It's usually not properly filed until you resend everything, and so unfortunately it might push you back 5 months. So unfortunately, and it's going to depend on how you resubmit it, because they do put barcodes on it and they give you a special sheet to put on the top. So if you send it back and you don't put the special sheet on the top, they might not backdate it. Another thing is that if they are at fault, that you can get the date pushed back to the date where they made the mistake. But it's all going to depend on how you resubmitted and what happened. Do you have to be a citizen to apply for the fiance visa for your spouse? Yes. Okay, so the consultation fee is $150 for up to 1 hour. And, I do a detailed consultation to just make sure that you do qualify, and then give you the option to get started as soon as I determine you qualify. So go ahead, go to the link in the profile or in the description of the video. Click on that link, and you'll have everything you need to get in touch to schedule your appointment. I'm looking forward to speaking with you, because as you will get from this live, there are a number of options that you can pursue if you qualify, even if you have no status, you overstayed or entered the country illegally. And that's what I do. I help people to pursue options that help them to stay in the United States and apply for the green card. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks again for your patience and your time. And I'll be back around lunchtime on Monday. Have a good one. Bye bye.